So like right, it has been a while since we did our last recording, right?
Totally.
Yeah, so today, 18th of July, 2025. So I think, we always kind of put dates so that we can sort of reference all the happening. And of course, in Malaysia recently, there's a lot of hoo-ha. And would you say it's fair? Would you say it is a fair thing that our Prime Minister is getting a lot of heat recently?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, from domestically, and of course, heat from Tariff, and he went to Brazil for BRICS, etc., etc. But today, of course, finally, we have a new Chief Justice appointed. Announced, not really appointed. It will be at the end of the month. And so there's this judiciary hoo-ha. Then before that, of course, we have the SST implementation. So what are you feeling from the ground right now? We just talk about the judiciary, right? That maybe not a lot of people really care. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so because probably because of the timing with SST implementation that comes into effect since 1st July, and people are probably just thinking that, hey, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of gray area. It's almost like the PMX wanting to distinguish himself from his predecessor, and yet he is closer than he thinks.
Yeah, it's like he tries to avoid. At least that's what he say he's trying to do. And now he's becoming more like his predecessor.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of probably undealt rivalry. Maybe even to a certain point, like being uncertain of his identity. I can't help but think, why do you care so much about people's perception? Yes, you should gauge what is happening on the ground, but he has never been like on the ground sort of person, like boots on the ground sort of person. And you also have DAP is more turun padang sort of party, but PKR has never been known to be like more turun padang. So I felt like a lot of unhappiness from the people are actually because he is kind of pretty far removed from like just being concerned about daily lives of the people, and he just felt like suck it up. And it's like a lot of U-turns than we would like to think, and especially on the part like he had to justify himself. Like immediately you see a Madani poster on, hey, what are our achievement and why should the PMX like be turunkan? So that sort of thing, you just felt like, if you're doing so well, why do you need such a strong justification?
Definitely, I don't know who would say that he's doing well. Except for the hardcore PKR supporter. But of course, when we talk about all the bread and butter issue, the judiciary issue, SST issue, it also has to be framed in light of what happened in the recent election in PKR, where, Rafizi and group are basically sidelined. Of course, we did one episode on that, and there were a lot of allegations about how new members were brought in. But regardless of what happens, the outcome was Rafizi group basically sidelined.
Exactly.
And it became important because the 9 MP kind of came out and, questions, of course, using the judiciary, because judiciary is what we will call a reform issue. And now we just mentioned most people don't really care, and I agree with you because of timing. But here in this show, we kind of care because it's like a reform kind of thing. And PKR should care because they call themselves reformer, right? So then of course, Rafizi press conference with the other MP, which some people say is like a vote of no confidence and things like that. So what do you think? Let's explore that part first. Is it legitimate behavior for Rafizi and Gang to do that, or do you think that it is like challenging the party's whip and things like that, that it is out of line? What's your personal stand?
Well, I'm a bit, for lack of better words, like a bit too minded about the whole situation, because Rafizi, for one, he is more.
His argument will be, look, I don't have an official position already, so I'm really like a backbencher. I'm not in cabinet, so
that I'm fine. But he has always been a bit more self-righteous.
Yeah, that part too.
PMX also having different kind of those.
Very similar in a way, that
but also different, I guess, different expression, different demonstration. So So I'm not sure if the intention is a bit genuine in that sense. But then again, I think it's also crucial for people to understand what is happening and actually just like gauge for themselves. I mean, you cannot have to like take it with a pinch of salt and yet still having like discernment throughout the whole thing. And I don't think it's wrong. I mean, it does show that there is to a certain degree of freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And I mean, obviously he's free to say it out. I mean, because of his influence and position, and obviously he has some hardcore supporters as well. Whether or not he's like doing it out of punishment to PKR for what has happened during the election, I mean that is yet to be
Payback time.
seen. Yeah, but then again, I mean it's not for us to judge also the intention. But the thing is, I think it is quite important because I mean PKR has always wanted to paint themselves. I mean, yes, as the reformer, but more importantly, like the transparency. So I think he's like just kind of like following through in that sense for Rafizi's side.
Yeah, and of course, now we already mentioned that because the issue they highlighted mainly is a judiciary one, and it has become a bit serious because even the Bar Council, which, I mean, they can be political, but in recent years they have become more neutral and more I don't know, subdue for lack of a better word. But even then, you know, they have a new chairman who is a Malay lawyer. So to see them so aggressively against Madani, to me, is a bit surprised. And but of course, what is the main reason? And I think the when you look at the constitution, it's very clear that the senior judges are appointed by Argonne through the advice of Prime Minister. So no matter how you look at it, it is a political appointment. And there's no running around from that because we said it a few times already. The executive in Malaysia, I mean the executive arm of the government basically has the most influence, has the most power because of historical things, and that's why Prime Minister office will always be the main driver for many decisions. So that's fine. But I think what angered a lot of people was PMX kept coming out and say that he has a position of no interference, which is, for lack of a better word, bullshit. Okay, because you know that they say look at the judiciary appointments council, right? JAC. I think they have 10 or 12 members, and the majority are actually appointed by Prime Minister, and the advice itself to the sovereign comes from Prime Minister. So you can't really say you have no influence. I mean, that's just I don't know. I don't know what game he's trying to play. And there are people who say that, you know, they are, you know, similar to remember when we have the Citizen Rights Amendment, and they say the deep state is against giving more rights to other people. So whoever are the deep states. I mean, even in today, would you agree that people can't really agree who are the deep states in Malaysia?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, people usually say, look, you have I mean, if you look at the American system, the British system, the deep states, they usually refer to the permanent unelected class. And some people will even say deep state will be like you know, it will be like civil service, the Secretary General of government department. Some will even say royalty and things like that. So, but of course, there's no clear consensus on what is a deep state. But some people are saying that there is that kind of rumbling that is against the extension of the former Chief Justice Tengku Maimun. And I mean, we talk about some of the cases that she has decided in the last 6 years, right? Some pretty landmark kind of case. But what do you? I mean, we're not here to do a full-blown analysis, but just generally speaking, what's your impression of the last 5-6 years of Tengku Maimun's leadership in the federal court?
Oh, I thought she was quite a fair person, as in like she does what she to her best ability, and the thing that I like about her the most in terms of, I mean, the whole team is really where they are separating. There's almost like a separation between how you judge a case based on using civil law versus Sharia law.
Yep,
so I think that's a pretty distinct
So do you think it's a good thing?
tone that is coming out from her. Yes. I mean, because Malaysia is a multiracial country. I mean,
And for the longest time, the court seems reluctant to draw a clear line.
yeah, but it's almost like I think what I do think is like she demonstrated the part where she is not like that there is submission to the executive branch. I mean, the sort of mutual submission. And yet there is also the part where there is independent judiciary review and whatnot. So those part I felt like she balanced it very, very well. And so I thought it's really, really kudos to her. Because otherwise, I mean, yes, you will have I mean, we'll also talk about one episode where I mean, do we want to have like a theocracy? I mean, definitely it's not I mean, we don't have any palette for it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of bizarre that we have to, in Malaysia, supposedly a multicultural nation, that people have to come out and say we don't want theocracy. I mean, it's so bizarre. I mean, so far removed from the Reid Commission and Cobalt Commission that allows this nation to come about. So, but it's something that people have to fight because you do have a political group that wants theocracy.
I wouldn't even say that suggests that it is even like a form of like people would think that it's compromise, but I felt like you should look at the founding spirit of this nation, as in I mean we come together with different people group, and I mean citizenship has always been one of the things that is like most contentious, and what how the whole process come about, the whole citizenship, and like hey, because we are born here and therefore you are a Malaysian. And so even that process itself is pretty unique. So how can you suddenly and go back and deny the whole thing about the founding of the nation, and you just basically say, hey, we just because like there is certain dominance, and I just felt like maybe times have changed, and you just felt like hey, the law has to be a bit more progressive to cater to certain ideology and whatnot. But Tengku Maimun has really like I felt like she balanced it out very, very fairly in that sense, as in like, hey, I'm here just to interpret what is in the constitution, and I'm gonna be like maybe not quite an originalist, but as close as possible to the constitutional rights.
Yeah, and some people accuse her for being adventurous, for lack of a better word. But of course, coming back to, I mean, you use the word originalist. There's also a discussion, and this is a broader philosophical discussion, right? You know, are we the parliament or the constitution? Which one is supreme in Malaysia?
Wow.
And I've seen people argue, but it kind of, to me, it has become a circular argument because the constitution was amended so many times by the parliament that it's almost unrecognizable. So if that's the case, it seems like if you have enough member of parliament, you have 2/3, you can change anything.
But what do you make of this? I mean, is it because it felt like we are becoming more like French government, and every few years we're trying to rewrite the whole constitution.
Because I mean, like if we look at the British system, for example, they don't because they don't have a formal constitution, for example. So their constitution comes from historical behavior, custom, but William Blackstone, for example, their most famous legal commentator, he believed in the supremacy of parliament. And the reason for that, for Blackstone's assertion was first, the parliament defeated the crown.
Right.
Which was a fact, okay? Kind of forced the crown to submit. And secondly, they don't have constitution. Then you contrast that with the American system, which the originalists and many of the, even today you have a lot of Supreme Court justices, people like Thomas, etc. They would say the Constitution reigns over the Congress. And for a very simple reason, if you want to change the Constitution, Congress alone cannot change. You need the president, you need both the houses, and there's another way which you can change constitution in United States, which a lot of people are not aware, which is convention of states.
Wow.
You call a convention of all the states. That means now of course all the states is their legislature have to support. So you get 2/3 of the states at the convention. It hasn't been called for, I don't know, for more than 100 years, I think.
You mean it has been used before?
Oh, it has been, of course.
Wow.
But it's a very, so it just shows that, I mean, it is an illustration that the Constitution is above the Congress.
So you reckon it's because of how easy it is to amend the constitution in Malaysia,
Yes.
therefore it shouldn't be made more, how do I put it?
Yeah,
Like,
so to say that the Constitution is supreme is a farce, I think. It's just not true. Because, I think previously, my Perlembagaan, there's a movement, right, to teach people about Constitution. I think there's a statistic to say that our Constitution has been changed 700 times. Of course, when you look at Hussein On, when our own Malaysian version of Omnibus, right, hundreds of amendments, it's like that's considered many amendments. Of course, some people will just say, oh, it's just one bill, but one bill that has a few hundred is still a few hundred amendments, right?
So how do you reckon, because civic education obviously it's pretty lacking here in Malaysia. So how do you reckon that a new generation should I wouldn't say fight against this, but kind of because it's definitely very challenging moving forward. I mean, obviously we're brought up in a situation where the member of parliaments can just easily change. I mean, that's the reason why they are the government of the day. And most people would want to just use their political power to basically just course correct whichever thing that they felt is right or wrong for the nation. And it's almost like it's difficult for the citizen to kind of change.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult because, when you think about May 13 and then NEP and then the various emergency, the historical development of this country, then the removal of local elections. So all these things basically gave more and more power to the executive. And then you add the fact that in Malaysia, we don't have proper political funding law. So when you are in power, your first instinct is to stay on power at all costs because that is the only way you can. A lot of people will justify, even a lot of people from DAP, I would say even those from civil rights activist background, they will justify doing whatever they need to do to stay in power because that's the only way they can make changes. So it's like a circular kind of, like a chicken egg kind of scenario. So there's no easy way, and that's why when Pakatan Harapan, of course previously Pakatan Rakyat, they were campaigning so much on the substance of reform. So Pakatan Rakyat and then Pakatan Harapan, they had the Buku Jingga and all those kind of things. So that's why when PMX finally, after he said ini kalila for I don't know how many thousand times, right? So he came with this baggage of you need to be a reformer, fairly or unfairly. And I think that is the thing that is pulling him down, weighing him down because he was not able to satisfy much of the reform. So it's kind of lacking, right, the reform.
Yeah, you can't be a populist. He wants to be a popular figure, but in many, many sense, he is not becoming the populist that he should be. Not garnering enough support from the people.
Yeah, because the behavior or the strategy and the implementation seems a bit elitist. Especially, in this show, we do a lot of coverage on United States, on MAGA, or on Trump and things like that. Then when you start to compare, and I know it's not the best comparison, we are a vastly different culture, people, and nation, but just one simple point, promises made, promises fulfilled. Like Trump is fulfilling his promises left, right, and center. No matter how people think about him, because there's a lot of derangement out there, right? Because too much consumption of mainstream media. But if people are being objective, he is really fulfilling vast majority of his election promises. But when you look at the Madani, it's like the opposite, right? They want to say they are fulfilling promises, but remember PKR Youth came out with a chart to support PMS, but it wasn't convincing. Look, we're not on purpose wanting to bring PMS out. In fact, it is in our interest and in our passion to see him successful, right?
Exactly.
But then we have to call something for what it is. So it just seems like there's a lot of impediment to reform. I mean, this will be the context to understand the whole thing about the judiciary. It's like if you are Sabri, if you are Muhyiddin, nobody will hold the same standard because they did not talk about reform for years and years and years. Whereas PMS you have, and that is, I think, the source of frustration for the previously core supporter. I mean, I say previously core because just from very casual observation, you look at some of the media, you look at some of the civil rights. I mean, you look at Malaysia Kini, all those, or Maria Mokhtar, all those people. Seems like the support is eroding at a very alarming rate.
Support.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think judiciary. I mean, how did we even get here? Right? I mean, we start with Maimun, right? But go back to your original point. I think she really did well in terms of trying to draw a line between civil and the religious law because it should be. I mean, by right, religious law should only apply to people of that religion. I mean, that is always a concern of people that, if you want to expand the religious law, what is the guarantee that it will not affect us? So that's why I remember a few months ago, we have the halal certification hoo-ha.
Exactly.
And that thing is now at the forefront of the tariff war.
I thought it was kind of interesting. I mean, in just like 5 pages, the US government has pretty much summarized everything that, hey, this nation, if you just find a way to navigate through, and you will actually be a very prosperous nation.
And I think since we're here, I think it's a good time for us to segue to, because I mean, we want to kind of talk about local, but I guess tariff is coming back again. I mean, the discussion of tariff. And it's very interesting because in April, remember, right? I mean, you see some people on social media and they say, we have the receipt, So way back in April when tariff first came into the forefront of the consciousness of the people, remember, I think we were one, I don't see anyone else in Malaysia saying that. And we say, look, it's not going to bring inflation. But every economist says it's going to bring inflation. So now, finally, 3 months later, no inflation. In fact, US is experiencing deflation. And then you have all the different economic data, right? And which is, I mean, the thing about economists is like this, right? You can just basically use whatever data you want to come up with whatever conclusion you want. I remember when I was in uni and we have I remember I was doing marketing and things like that as a subject. But there's always a bit of economic component. And I remember the lecturer said, look, economy is the most complex social science. In fact, they consider economic social science study. But then he add in a very cynical way, it's something you can make whatever you want to make out of it. This is from the lecturer, okay, economic lecturer. But anyway, I mean, you look at the data, right? I mean, they look at the market data. They have the consumer pricing data. Like how much is milk, how much is the egg prices drop so much. US is experiencing 10, 12-year low. They call it gasoline, right? It's our petrol price, and jobs are increasing, and of course there's still a bit of loss of job because a lot of the job cuts came from DOG, right? So all this kind of thing, and of course I think if tariff is so bad for US, then Trump wouldn't be pushing for tariff. So I think that part is debunked already, and you still have mainstream media trying to come up with fake news every now and then, but that is out. And I think just a few days ago, Vice President JD Vance, I think he was just saying something to the effect, what's wrong with all the economists? Almost all of them are wrong when it comes to tariff. And so I mean, we have seen this cycle before, right? Remember with COVID, it's like you are all wrong, and then most of you are wrong, and maybe some of you are right, and then eventually it becomes, we say the cap changing on goalposts. But what do you make of all this tariff, in context? Because now the whole issue of tariff is like right in the face of Malaysian now, right? Because of the deadline and things like that. So from April until now, with the recent development, what's the thing that kind of stood out for you?
Well, personally, I thought like some of these requests are not unfair. But it's almost like our emotions are actually hindering us from making the best judgment call out of this whole thing. And I mean, it's kind of interesting because Malaysia is the ASEAN chairman for the year, and basically you have like your neighboring countries. I mean, you are trying to like form an economic bloc.
Okay, since you mentioned that, what do you make of that dream?
It's very, very far-reaching. Probably easier to strike a deal than than to reach that.
Would you say it's an impossibility?
I would say it looks pretty bleak in the near future.
Yeah, because you know, I study European Union law, and when you know, coming from the Westminster common law legal background, when I did that as an elective, I just felt, wow, this is a demonic system, because to have Eurozone, for example, a single economic zone, you have to give up so many things. And that's why even when United Kingdom joined Euro for the first time, the express condition is we have to keep sterling pound. So that, and a few other things. So they have some certain things different, but for most part, they follow the thing. And it is like a union that is 30, 40, 50 years in the making.
Yeah, that's why Brexit was such a triggering event for so many, Europeans.
Yeah, because they were like, wow. And now you see there are nations who doesn't want it, you know. Besides the anchoring nation, right? I mean, you talk about German, France.
I felt like, perhaps for Asian ASEAN countries, perhaps a more doable, foreseeable outcome would be like maybe forming like special economic arrangement between these nations. I mean, after all, we are like competitors. I mean, how can
exactly. We produce so many similar stuff, right?
Yeah, but if like in those days where you have like a certain nation that is like, let's say for instance, you're famous for producing textile, and the other nation is producing like, let's say electronics, and you can have like that sort of barter system, maybe that might work. I mean, because you're helping each other to promote their best to their best interests. But now everyone is like so similar. I mean, the thing about whole ASEAN countries are that they're very more similar than different. So
right.
I mean, yes, obviously you have like different cultures and whatnot, but the thing is like the mentality, the preference, the culture, a lot of things are very, very similar. So how do you promote like capitalism in the midst of like similarity? So I think it's a bit difficult. So if we would just like be a bit more objective and hey, like maybe there are certain other arrangements, like let's say for instances, like there's exchange of technologies, or even like protecting like the labor being exploited, or maybe even being taken advantage by like maybe like other countries like Bangladesh or like Pakistan, those are countries. And yeah, maybe I think that might work, rather than like dreaming of having like what ASEAN currency or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, our PMS have this kind of very grandiose kind of plan, and of course, I think the motivation for them to even think about it is because they really, I mean, with the tariff war, especially with Trump's policy, they really began to see they have no leverage. So imagine European Union. I mean, European Union is like the only bloc besides China that can even put out. I mean, even China has to compromise, you know, in terms of the coming to a deal. So I think it's when they look at it and say, oh, the Eurozone, you know, when they're united, they have a strong bargaining power. But it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, look at EU now is having massive difficulty striking a deal with US because every country have different goal, right? I mean, German will be thinking about their automobile. You know, Italy will be thinking about their own export. France will be concerned about certain things. Macron is concerned about Airbus. You know, everywhere Trump goes, he's trying to get nations to buy Boeing. So everyone have different interests. But then, you know, because of Eurozone, basically they actually have a European Parliament election. So you are basically giving away the rights that the respective parliament and legislature of the European nations have no say in trade arrangement with USA. So is that what we want to see? And you talk to the local politician who are so used to being autocrat. I think it's like it's a bit fail already initially. So that's why when I look at it, I just feel like people don't really understand the history of Eurozone. And Eurozone came out of necessity after World War II and after the fall of Iron Curtain, and West Germany was so, I mean, that itself is a miracle. West Germany was so willing to talk about unification with East Berlin. I mean, you think about it, it's just so bizarre. Why would they even want to do that? But they did that. And that kind of laid the seeds for modern Euro. So I think we're very, very far away from that. But some people are talking about that, right?
Yeah.
Then, of course, very interestingly, and just now in dinner time, we were just talking about Zafru, right? That every now and then he will came out with certain things about this is US demand. And you were saying you feel like he is testing water.
Yeah, I think so.
Testing water of who? Malaysians,
of course. I mean,
but I mean, people like you and me, our reaction is immaterial, right? I mean, but he used a very like today. There's an article today. Let me just see if I can find. Okay, this is an article. This is from FMT, but a lot of other places also have. US wants foreign equity cap lifted in strategic sectors, said Tengku Zafru. And in that article, he mentioned very cryptically, we're still discussing with stakeholders. So I wonder who are the stakeholders. So is he testing water for the stakeholders?
perhaps so.
I mean, just today, this week, suddenly I have a client refer to me from Hong Kong, and they're buying some kind of commercial grade vehicle. I didn't even know commercial grade vehicle, you need some license.
Oh.
And they were using a JV partner to operate, but the JV has ended. So they have a Malaysian entity, but they cannot hold the license because you need 51% local shareholder. So these are the kind of thing which Zafu is talking about. So every industry, I know telecommunication, actually quite a few industry, you need basically local equity. Otherwise, you cannot operate in Malaysia. Even restaurant, I was very surprised to hear that you need a 51% local equity. You want foreign-owned can, I think you have to raise the equity to your payout has to be above certain level. So these are the kind of supposedly rules that I guess from the American perspective is protectionism. So we know Tesla is one of the few companies to get exempted, right? So I mean, since you already allowed Tesla, why not allow Nvidia? Why not allow Intel? Okay, Intel is on the way out, but you know what I'm saying or not? And I was just reading an article again. All this, I don't know how true is it. They say up to 14% of Nvidia's revenue come from Malaysia.
Wow.
And Nvidia had recent days hit 4 trillion valuation. So that's why it's a big deal. You imagine it suddenly these companies don't need 30% or 40% or 50%. I mean, listed calls say you need 30%. Is it local equity or Bumi equity? I can't remember already. Bumi, right? But you talk about logistics and things like that. They're talking about 51% local.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, so you reckon Zafru is trying to. So he's putting out terms which you think he received from the other side?
I think
This is
so.
our demand?
Yeah, I mean, because things have not been like super transparent. I mean, we only sort of like knew that, hey, I mean, there has been like negotiation thus far, and I mean, it is like so interesting that he would just say that as for Malaysia, we're still in negotiations, but we have until 1st August and there is still
It's very,
time.
very soon, right?
Which is like, is there any sense of urgency at all? I mean, I think it's not easy. Like what you say, most of the politicians, once they get into power, they will just do like at all expense to just like stay in power. So I think with that, he's like testing waters for those who are still in power and even maybe sovereignty in this nation. And so basically, there's a lot of things I totally understand that are at stake, because he was just saying that, hey, I mean, all this thing, we will not cross these red lines if we are like sacrificing the country's
Yeah,
sovereignty or sidelining
it
other.
feels like a very clear message to the stakeholder.
Correct. And all sidelining other trading partners in trying to close a trade deal. So who are these trading partners? I mean, China? I don't know. I mean, so I think with that is like, on one hand, I think the nation is like very eager to do, like be like super associated with BRICS nation. But on the other hand, you also know that, hey, I mean, if we are like seen to be super friendly, we'll get another 10% more on top of what is.
Now let me ask you, like, based on your conversation and people, like, do you think there are many people who are in favor of Malaysia being more active in BRICS? I mean, from your circle of contact.
I think they are also kind of like
Unsure.
because it's like we have yet to see what is good. What's it gonna be like without US currency?
Yeah, and of course USD is one thing. The other thing which I think a lot of people, that's why when you talk about the major trade partners, right? And China and US, of course, number one, number two. But what a lot of people don't understand is that yes, China is a big trade partner, but the bulk of the item they buy from us is petroleum. I mean, petroleum, seriously, you can sell to anyone, okay?
Yeah.
But when you talk about electronics, semiconductor, medical equipment, and things like that, that's why the medical equipment manufacturer are asking for reduction of tariff, and there was a response from the American Medical Manufacturer Association and say, oh, don't need to lower because we can cover all the local needs. Basically, it's saying that we don't need to import. So this kind of export, we are so reliant on the US market. I think people don't quite understand how big the US market is in terms of purchasing power. And China has never been about this kind of, they rely more on domestic market and things like that because they are export first nation. So that's why you look at it, there's very, very little leverage. And that is why Vietnam and Indonesia quickly strike a deal. So, but when I look at the Zafro article, I also feel like maybe there's another side, which is like maybe this is an option for them. And if they do go that path, they sort of already, hey, I already told you so, don't be so shocked, that kind of thing. So
Honestly, I think if they were able to strike a deal, I would say it's a great achievement for Madani government.
yeah, I mean, what would be an acceptable deal? I think definitely not 25%. I think 10 is hard. 10 is Singapore and Britain, and that's about it. I think 15 to 20 will be considered big win. But I don't know what else is required. What is required to even drop that 10%? What market needs to open? What restriction? What non-tariff restrictions needs to be taken away? So, but either way, I see that as a potential room for growth.
I think they are kind of like in a dilemma because now you suddenly have like SST on all the imported stuff, and then you have to strike a deal with US to open out the market to US basically. So it's like
But what do you make of US? We open the market to US. Is it such a bad thing? Because I think the last did we talk about it in the last episode? I'm not even sure we're going to publish
I
that
think
one.
so.
And we say there's a Professor William, I remember he was saying that, what's so bad about opening the market? You open the market to US product, it is still going to be more expensive.
I think it's really like the control by our government. I mean, for really for lack of better words, it's control. As in like, I mean, it is very difficult to say that, hey, I mean, for those who can eat avocado, these are the ultra rich, and suddenly you open a market and the avocado becomes cheaper than say for instance banana.
I mean, that's why the whole local versus import fruit fast during the SST is just so ridiculous because we know so many local fruits are so much more expensive than imported fruits. Then, of course, I think several episodes ago, we talked about even between Peninsula and Borneo states, there's also a lot of restriction, like a lot of pork product, a lot of milk product, a lot of fruit product cannot I mean, you cannot find most of the fresh milk here in Sarawak because the government don't allow it. The state government don't allow it. So this kind of control, I think, is innate lah within our culture. So that's probably explain why it is so difficult for them to let go. But anyway, what's I mean, let's kind of wrap it out today already. And what's your how do you see this ending? I mean, with the tariff. I mean, maybe what do you hope to see, and what do you think will happen?
Well, I mean, I definitely hope to see a deal is being strike very, very quickly. I mean, we have like less than 2 weeks to close the deal. And I felt like actually there is a huge possibility that we could, I mean,
strike a deal?
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's my hope, and that's also the sort of results that I think we could see. And I think if Zafrul would just remain a bit more neutral and really, really just be the great advisor that he is, in the sense that, I mean, the economic savviness and things like that. I mean, he, of all the meeting,
but nothing goes through. Nothing
correct
nothing is approved without going through PMO, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, would you agree with that?
That definitely. I think so. If PMX would just
he has to
mellow down, I don't know.
So what you're saying is that Zafrul has a potential to play the strategy advisor kind of thing and just say, look, I mean, of course, I mean, the public persona is kind of hard to read, right?
Yeah, I mean, the some of these things are actually not a bad thing at all for Malaysia. If they could just like present like proper economic model data and things like that, whatnot, I do think Malaysia has a very good chance of like navigating through these narrow straits and really basically just come to that place of like, hey, let's just shake hand, and like focus on nation building rather than focusing on like so many other vast international news and not.
Yeah, that's the thing that Madani has been focusing on. Then of course, the other thing is it's not easy to let go of the powers they have tasted, through affirmative actions, Ketuangan Melayu, all those kind of thing, and the protectionism policy for local shareholding requirements. So all this gives them a lot of control. So it's not easy to give it up.
But I also think, like, I mean, with the reinstatement of Sabah and Sarawak being like the like a region, and so I felt like there is, hey, I mean, it's like we have gone through a big hurdle. I mean, we're still very far from the MA63 spirit. But the thing is, I mean, that itself is already an achievement in the sense that, I mean, if you could navigate through that, and you're talking about
already
like,
a decentralization of power.
like equal partners, and surely you could also see US as quite an important trading partners as well. I mean, like not sidelining them, but really just come to the table and just felt like, hey, this is what we could negotiate. I mean, because the table is open for all to discuss, and basically, I think if PMX would just focus most of his energy on local development and really nation building, I think people would still give the deal credit, and he might not actually like lose his seat the next round. So I felt like there is a
window
lot
for
of
him.
Yeah, exactly, like a grace period that is present. I mean, although short, it is still something that is still workable. I mean, obviously that's my wish of seeing.
Yeah,
things.
I think I agree with you because I mean, we kind of can conclude with this. When we first talk about tariff, remember we talk about like our personal view at the time. I still believe that what US is demanding from Malaysia is not as stringent as, say, Vietnam, India, Japan, Korea, because the primary objective is to limit China. So we are not like a major transit point, So, but of course, since Trump being Trump, is like, since I'm dealing with this, we must well negotiate everything. So I don't believe it is very difficult to reach a deal, but the emotional part and the part, do we want to be competitive? Because we did episode on DI, so many things are holding us back. Do you want to go the reformer path? Yes, there's a big risk that if Madani really go the reformer path, you may lose the election because the people can't embrace reformation at this stage, which is a possibility. But if you never try, then you are at status quo, right? Anyway, I think that's all the time we have for today. I mean, so many things we want to catch up, but we don't have. But I think one of the things we wanted to talk, maybe next episode, will be nomination of a new U.S. ambassador to Malaysia. I mean, he hasn't even passed Senate approval.
Well, PMX said it's still too premature to comment.
I mean, there's a lot of the lower rank people are kind of manifesting, but look at PMX, look at Mat Hassan, look at Fahmi, the higher level people are kind of like, let's not jump the gun. I mean, it's very unusual for you to reject an ambassador. I mean, look at what KJ said. KJ said this guy is Zionist based on the fact that he kind of reprimanded a waitress wearing Free Palestine shirt. I mean, if you call that Zionist, I don't know. I don't know where is the logic. But anyway, I just feel like the response has been very, very childish. And yeah, maybe the next time you come to recording, I mean, it's not even a major agenda for Trump administration, but I just feel like it's very silly. Why you want to fight this kind of battle, right?
Yeah.
Then all the other country will scrutinize you also.
Yeah, but if we could apply the same common sense, I think in tariff negotiation, I think we will do very, very well.
Yeah, that's why Foreign Minister Mat Hassan, I think he has been behaving the most statesman-like. I mean, from ASEAN meeting and things like that, which is very surprising. But maybe not so surprised because we've been saying, right, if UMNO is the lead now, maybe there will be unhappiness, but it won't manifest so publicly. I don't know. This is a feeling. But anyway, I think we kind of run out of time already. So we shall talk about all these things in the next episode.
Yes.
Until next time, bye-bye.